Okay, it looks like we're actually live this time. Cool. Maybe, maybe. Okay, it looks like we're actually live this time. Cool. All right, yeah, we're here. Okay. Okay, guys. Hey, what's going happy Saturday, guys. Hey, how's it going? If you are with us, hello and welcome. We are doing something a little different this week. Rather than releasing our produced video, we are live in the lab, and we're going to be kind of hacking on a project that we've been working on for a little under 2 weeks. We've been working on integrating StencilJS with Storybook. So let me post these social links out here so that everyone knows how to find us, and then we will get off to the races. Okay, so we are live. We are live streaming now, talking about building a StencilJS app. Building Storybook into a StencilJS project. All right, let's get off to the races here. Cool. So hello again, happy Saturday to everyone, and again, just a little recap. We're going to be covering something we've been working on for the past couple weeks here, and we've been working on integrating Storybook with Stencil. And so for you, those of you who are not familiar with Stencil, Stencil is a web component framework, and Storybook, which is what we're actually supposed to be looking at. Storybook is a tool that was originally made for React. It was originally called React Storybook, and it's a way of basically viewing your component set. So Stencil, you build web components and you kind of put them inside of an application. But this allows you to kind of view each one individually and then set up states underneath each one. So that way you can basically set up all the different states of your components so that you can view each one individually. And then it has a bunch of other extras that we'll kind of get into as we set things up. So this is a little different from what we generally do. So usually we have a kind of polished idea of a video, and then we run it through the paces, and then kind of, we don't really have a script, obviously. We don't have a script, but we do kind of run it through its paces, and then we kind of record, and then cut a little bit, reshoot a couple times. And this week we want to let you guys in early on something that we have been playing with. It's something that we might run with or not. And we want to kind of get your guys' feedback and see if maybe you have a different way you might do this. And just get you guys active and involved in this. So that being the case, we thought there'd be no better way than to just kick it and stream with you guys. And if somebody jumps in and wants to chat with us along the way, we'll be answering questions or just kind of kicking it. Emily will probably walk in with cookies at some point because Emily. And so I guess without any further ado, I'll guess let's just let's get going. Okay, so first off, you can see here we've got the engine components repo up and open, and this is the one we've been working on for the last couple of weeks. We've got the star rating component in there. We've got the all of our 3 different versions, the shadow, the scoped. If you didn't catch those 2 videos, I will make sure after the stream's over to put a link in the description. So feel free to head on down there and grab that. Hello to everyone that is watching us live right now, or if anyone is watching us live right now. We are, let's see, where are we here? Titles. Okay, cool. We got the right title. We're good. So now I'm gonna open up the chat here, and I'll try to keep an eye here on the chat as I'm going through. I will do my best. Running 2 monitors here, trying to orchestrate a lot, but I will do my best to kind of keep in tune here. Cool. Okay, so let's see if I can just send a message out to everybody. Cool. Okay, so first thing, clone this guy down if you haven't already. It's madnesslab/engine-components, and this is the repo where we're going to set everything up. And luckily, Storybook is really simple to get up and running. What we're going to do is just kind of follow the instructions here on the HTML page, because we're going to get it set up like HTML components. So again, as I said, Storybook was originally made for React, and then they kind of spread out into other frameworks. And actually, before we get rolling here, I do want to give a quick shout out to David. So David was nice enough to reach out to us on the Stencil Worldwide Slack channel, and David said that, you know, basically, thanks so much for putting out these videos and everything like that. And actually, he was also a giant help with this video. So today the other day I actually asked him a couple questions and pinged some things off him because he had done some work with Webpack and building of stencil components. Thanks, David. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for watching. We'll keep trying to put out quality content. Oh, I'm off the screen. Well, thank you. 2 thumbs up. 2 thumbs way up for you. So thanks again, David, for reaching out and telling us that we're awesome. We definitely appreciate you watching and reaching out to us, and especially for helping, because all of this dev stuff is really fucking confusing, and so it helps to be able to bounce stuff off people. So cool. So let's just start jumping in right here. We'll jump into the HTML instructions. And then we're going to basically just run the this command here. If we scroll down a little bit further, we get 2 libraries we need to install right off the bat, or 3 libraries. We need Storybook HTML, we need the Babel loader, and we also need the Babel core. So we're just going to install these all with 1 command here. So I'm going to open up my terminal, npm install Storybook HTML. We need Babel loader, and at Babel/core. So that's going to install Storybook, which is that's going to be the kind of GUI interface that we have for like where we're going to view our components. And then we have Babel loader and Babel core, which they use to do kind of the bundling and the and all their JavaScripty type stuff. So we need Babel in order to, basically read through all this JavaScript and compile this out. They use Webpack in order to do their builds, which is why David was kind of giving us some pointers and some tips on how he had worked with stencil components and Webpack. We ended up having to take a different route, but we'll show you kind of what we have set up. And our hope is that we can kind of work with you guys and figure out maybe a better way to do this. And again, it's going to be out on our GitHub, so feel free to submit a pull request or submit issues. And again, we're hoping that this will help kind of move things forward, because React or Storybook is a really great tool, and we've just implemented it over the last couple weeks, and it's been really neat seeing it all kind of pan out. So hello again to anyone tuning in. We are kind of just working through the npm install here. We've installed our dependencies. And now we need to basically wire up the command that we need in our package file that's going to actually start Storybook and launch it in the browser. So we're going to go into our package.json, and then we're going to run this start Storybook command, except we've got a slightly modified command that we're going to be using that's going to be a little bit more robust. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this guy over here. Okay, so we've got a Storybook command here, and we're going to pass in a couple flags. So one, we're going to define the port, which is not super important. We don't need this first command. We're going to start the Storybook on port 9000. We're going to use the configuration in the .storybook directory, and then we're going to force the public directory where this thing is rendering from to be www. So there we go. We've got our Storybook command. So now we can do npm run Storybook, and it will spin up the Storybook instance. So now, in order, as you can see here, we're pulling in a config file. All of our config stuff for Storybook is going to be under a directory in the root with the prefix of, or with the name of .storybook. So we're going to create a folder here, .storybook. And then we're going to start putting some files in here as we read along here. So we're going to make a config.js. So config.js. We're going to copy all of this right here and paste it in. And then we need, let's see. Yeah, and then we need, this is actually really good. So we could include one story at a time. However, we could also try to get an entire list of stories, which is probably what we're going to want to do. And by probably, I mean absolutely. So cool. So let's go ahead and just want to make sure I'm not missing out on any messages here, because I do have a habit. Oh, cool. It is actually getting out. Okay, cool. Awesome. So let's go ahead and keep trucking here. So now we've got this, and what this is going to do, this is going to read through all of the folders, or it's going to read through a folder called stories. We don't have stories inside of, or at least we don't want to make a stories directory. What we thought was a little bit more convenient and made a lot more sense was to store these story files, because each component needs a story to set up all the different states and to feed in all the data. So we actually thought it was better to kind of store them inside of the components themselves. So that's what we're going to set up for here. So in your config file, you're going to want it slightly different. And again, link will be in the description here, or again, it's just ManaSlab/engine components. And I'll even, if anybody's following along, I'll even start to kind of commit as we go here. So that way, if you wanted to, you could just kind of pull this down as we go. Okay, so we need a little bit of a different config. So what we're going to do is we're going to change just how this works just a little bit, and we're going to load in from everything from /source. So now we're reading from the whole source directory, and then we're going to be looking for stories.js. So we're going to make a file inside of each one of our components here called the name of the component .stories.js. And so now step 4, as you can see, we're already ready to kind of run this and test this out. And so here's what a story looks like. So let's go ahead and actually use our star rating component here, and let's build. Actually, we've got a test component that's even simpler. So let's just start with a simple component. So let's just do this test component. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this, and we're going to create a new file in here, and it's going to be called test component.stories.js. And in here, we're going to paste the code that we have from the website. And you can see it's adding 2 different states here. So we're importing Storybook HTML, then we're doing stories button, and then we're doing with text with emoji. Let's go ahead and I will clean this up a little bit because we're adding 2 different states there. We only need one. are stories of this first thing is like the name of the story that you're writing. This is usually going to be the name of your component. So I'm just going to do test component. And then here with text, I'm just going to say default because this is like the default state. And then you can see here, all we do is we pass through the second thing is like a callback, a function that's going to return a string. At the end, it has to return a string or an HTML element. And so that's kind of the only requirements. So what we can do is we can basically just put in string here, our component name, test component, or it's going to be engine test component, engine test component. And then we're going to need our closing tag, engine test component. Okay, so let's go ahead and save that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do what they said. We're going to run the storybook command, npm run storybook. Pause for a drink of water. Awesome. So happy Saturday to you guys. I'm hoping your night is going well. If you can't tell, I'm a drink or two in, so we're having a little bit of fun tonight before the live stream. You know, we want this to be entertaining. It's got to be entertaining. So feel free to hit us up if you guys have any questions, or you want to clarify something, or you just think I'm a big bumbling idiot and I don't know what I'm doing. All of those great things to give feedback on. So feel free to hit us up. And as always, you can find us on Twitter at Madness Labs. We are also on Facebook at Madness Labs. If anybody uses that privacy sucking machine, you know, you guys find us on there. We're wherever you are. So cool. So we're getting a broken build. So we got a broken build. It's saying that it can't find our storybook config.storybook.config.js. Storybook. So that looks fine. So let's look back at our package. And this is the beautiful part. You guys get to watch me fuck up live. /storybook.storybook. Okay, I'm not gonna lie. It looks like it's there. Oh, can't resolve /stories. So did we save our config? Okay, let's terminate that and try to run that again, because I think that's a save behind or something. All right, there we go. So now you can see Storybook has now built, and we are now seeing our test component that we wired up, or the state at least. And so it's read the story that we put in this folder, and it's created us as default state, and it's passing in engine test component. And just to make sure, we can right click and inspect the element here. You can see in the HTML we do have a root, and in the root you can see engine test component. So it's not working. We don't see a test component. That's because we need to actually wire up those JavaScript files. So there's a couple ways you can do it. And the way that we did it actually gives us the hot module reloading. So we wanted a way to not just include the JavaScript file. So if we were just making like documentation or something like that to host out on the website, it would be fine to just include the script tags or whatever into the project, and that way, or into Storybook, so that we can use them. And so we'll show you kind of how to set that up first. So we'll just kind of step you along our crazy process that we took over the last couple weeks. And so they have a file called preview head. So I'll go ahead and just paste it in this directory here. So you put this in the Storybook config folder, and you name it preview-head. And then in here, you can put any kind of links or scripts that you want to be put into the head of the document, and it will inject this into the head. And so what we can do is we can put the links to our JavaScript library. So we are technically running from the directory www right now when we're running on our local machine. So what we can do is we can actually just put a script tag. So we're going to do script source, and then we're going to do /build /engine.js, it looks like. And it looks like I don't have a CSS file in this case. If you if you are using the global CSS file inside of like your stencil project, like inside of your stencil config, you have a global style file, you will have to like link that guy up too. But in this case, I'm using just CSS files, and those get kind of loaded automatically. They get like inlined in your components, so we don't need to include a style file at all here, which is great. So if I save that, again, no hot module reloading. So I'm gonna have to kill this build and then restart it again. And then once it loads, we should be able to actually see our test component. So feel free also, I'll try to keep Twitter open. So if anybody wants to jump in and message us on Twitter, I'll try to respond back to there as well. So yeah, it's up to you guys how you guys want to kind of communicate with us. I've got Restream up, so hopefully I'll be seeing your guys' messages come through. But yeah, you know, it is what it is. So okay, cool. So so while I pull up here. Okay, so again, we should have our, oops. Okay, cool. So now you can see we're actually getting our test component to run. I'm enticing someone else to come join our live stream. You will join us. Join us. Join us. All right, let's see. And hopefully you guys are having a lovely evening. I know Em and I are having a pretty good night ourselves. All right, cool. So as you can see here, we've got, so we've made this preview head. It's now injected the script tag into our page here. Somewhere in the head of the document, we should be able to see our script tag. And yeah, so it's pulling in our components now, and we're actually getting in the render. Again, if I was to make a change to the test component, and I was to like maybe, for instance, only show one paragraph tag instead of freaking 100, and I save, it's not going to reload automatically after it finishes building. So you can see Webpack is built. I'll have to actually refresh the page. And in some cases, as you can see here, in some cases, it's like really persistent. Oh yeah, actually, I'm dumb. Our stencil build isn't running. So our stencil build isn't even running to actually feed in a new version of the JavaScript file for us to reload. So yeah, this solution wasn't great for us. Again, great if you're just generating a flat page to view all your documentation or whatever. But this isn't going to make the cut as far as kind of like what we wanted. So let me go and post the link out here to post out the link to the repo and the link to Storybook. Cool. So there we go. So now we've got it working. It's loading a test component, and we've got a story. Boring. Let's do something cool. So we've got this working. Let's get hot module reloading working. So that's going to be a little bit more work. However, it's not that bad. So first off, what we're going to need is we're going to need to edit a Webpack config. So and again, I will go ahead and let's commit this up. Hook up Storybook, basic example. So I'll commit this up. So if you guys are following along, feel free to pull down from the master branch now. So you're ready to go. So let's go ahead and now create a Webpack file underneath Webpack config underneath our Storybook directory. Let's go ahead and paste this guy in. And this webpack.config, basically a Webpack config is just a bundler. So like it takes all of your different JavaScript files and stuff and it bundles it all up together. So if you're not familiar with it, that's kind of what it does. And Storybook reads this file, and basically you can read from the config, and then you can take that config and then go ahead and edit it. And then after you've edited your config, you can then basically return it, and it will use that as the base of the Webpack build. So we can edit anything in here we want. And so what I've done is I've gone and edited it so that we can wire up our engine, or we can wire up our components directly to the build. So what happens is that we tell Webpack to add on to the entry path, these are files that they're watching to build into the bundle. We basically tell Webpack, oh goodness. So we tell Webpack that we want to add this the component file. We tell it we want to watch that file, and then we build that. Every time it sees a change to that file, it will then run the build and then reload the bundle in the browser. So it's easier just to kind of walk through it here. So let's just go ahead and do that. So here you can see we pull in a couple different files. We're actually going to need a couple more plugins, I believe. But let's go ahead and wire this up. So we have config entry push. So we're going to be adding on to the list of entry files the path to our components file. So remember that was from our preview head. That was this engine.js. And we're going to actually comment that guy out because we don't need to link to that anymore inside of our head. We're now going to build it into the actual bundle itself. So to do that, we actually are going to navigate out of the current directory, the Storybook directory, into www build, and then we need, in this case, engine.js. And same thing here. We're going to, in this case, this is basically running through all of the collections. So if you go into your build engine, build collection. Well, let me see what I did over here. Love when I forget how I write my own code. Again, this is all beta. This is all us just playing around for the last couple of weeks, and that's the whole reason why we're doing the live stream, to just this is how we kind of got started on here, just screwing around and trying to build stuff and seeing what happens. So what we're doing here is we want to go through all of the JavaScript files inside of the build, and then we want to basically take those and add them to the entry as well. So all the JavaScript files in the entire library get put into the bundle. So that's fine and dandy. That sounds great. But actually we need to change our paths on these, because what's happening here is we need so we have two different builds going here in this project. We have a distribution build, which builds to the dist directory, and that's got all the files we actually need, because we don't need the uncompiled versions of the file. We need the compiled, ready to go, ready to use files. So what we're going to do is actually, let's pull this from the dist directory instead. So I'm going to go //dist, and then I'm going to look inside dist, and then there's the engine.js file. Same thing here, www instead of www. We want dist collections, dist. Okay, cool. So there we go. And then same thing down here, dist, because that's where our built version. The other project we're in is a little bit different structure. Same thing here. The context of this is going to be dist. Okay, so again, let's just walk through this one more time. Sorry. Okay, so one more time, we add on the main engine file, or the main component file. So this will be whatever you've named the namespace on your project, or or the name of your component set, its default app.js. We're going to add that guy onto the entry. And that file is just a loader, basically. It sets up everything in the polyfills that's needed in order to pull in all the components. All the components are in dist collection components. So I basically run through that whole list of components, and then I add all of those JavaScript files onto the entry so that they get built into the actual bundle that Webpack is feeding the Storybook. Then basically I check to see if the file exists. So if there's a component that doesn't have one of those files, it's not going to error out. And then I also grab the CSS file if there's a CSS file. And then we basically push all of those CSS and JavaScript files onto the entry path so that they get built into the bundle. Then we have this copy plugin. So this is something that I'm basically doing to copy. This copies from a certain spot to another spot. And so what this is going to do is when Webpack does the build, I'm going to take everything from the dist directory, which is the entire distribution bundle of like the component. I'm going to copy all of that to the public directory where it's serving Storybook from. And we will have to install a plugin for that, which we'll do here momentarily. Then we want to basically copy our plugins, or we want to basically add onto the list of plugins that we're using in Webpack the write file plugin, which is another thing that we're using to basically determine when a file is written to. I think that's the whole point of that guy. So that's kind of the breakdown of the Webpack, and we will have to install a couple files. So let's kill our build. We're going to do npm install --save dev, and then we're going to install copy Webpack plugin, as well as write file Webpack plugin. So we're going to need both of those guys in order to utilize these Webpack functionalities. So hello again to anybody who's joining us tonight. Hopefully you guys are doing well. I'm a drink or two in, and I'm feeling pretty good at this point. But you know, after the stream ends, I might be feeling even better. So okay, cool. So now we've installed those two guys. So in theory, we should have a working hot module reloading now, because now it's pulling in our collection. It's copying everything over. So if everything went well, that should be working. So let's go ahead and run our npm run Storybook. And please let us know if the quality is not quite great. I've been kind of checking on it and keeping tabs. Everything looks pretty good at the moment, but if anything dips or anything, let us know. We'll try to do what we can here. All right. Okay, so here's our Storybook. It opened back up in the wrong tab. So there you go. So now you can see our component is still here, and it's now here not because there is a JavaScript file that's getting included in the head. This is actually being built into the actual bundle. So we can test this by, let's go ahead and open another tab here, and I'm actually opening a new one because we got so fat of text here. Let's go ahead and do npm start, and that'll start our stencil build, and this will build the components. And remember, we made that change over here to the actual components. Oh, there it goes, boom. So there you can see there's the hot module replacement. So it just built the new version with the stencil compiler, built the new version of the JavaScript. Webpack picked up on that and then automatically popped in the new version of the component. So now we should be able to go in our test component here and change something else. And let's say, hello trainers. And there we go, boom. You can see there it gets swapped out and put in. So what would be really beneficial is now that I'm using Storybook, since I can use this to do hot module reloading and I can test everything in here. As you can see, we've kind of, up to this point on this tutorial series, I've been using this little engine components and these little dumb things that we've kind of created. that's much less robust. This has like been our storybook, and it's been much less robust. And so this gives us a lot more control. So we don't need this page anymore. So let's go ahead and stop Stencil from opening up. And let's instead of having to run 2 commands, let's make it run 1 command to do both of these things and spit out the content of both onto our console. So to do that, we need to jump back into our package file. So let's kill both of our builds that we have running here. We're going to jump back into our package file, and we're going to add some more stuff here. Package.json. We need some more commands, and I will copy them over for ease of use here. Okay, so we're going to have a command called story. And this story command, because it's going to be a little shorter, the story command is going to be what we run to actually do a build. And then we're going to run 2 things. We're going to run stencil watch, which in this case, we can just run start. So we're going to run the start command. So that's going to run, it's going to run the stencil server. And actually, we're going to turn serve off because we don't want to serve. We do want to watch, and we do want it to, actually, no, let's make a new one altogether. Let's say, let's call this one, yeah, we can do that. Let's just leave that. Let's just use start. Let's leave it the way it is. And then what we'll do, yeah, we'll take serve off of here because we don't need it to serve anymore. We just need it to do the dev or the build, and we need it to watch. And so let's go ahead and run that guy. So we're going to run, we're going to need a new command first of all, because we're going to do this npm run all, which is going to run 2 different tasks in parallel and then pipe all of the console stuff into one console window so we can see everything. So let's go ahead and do that. Npm install install save dev. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do npm run all. Cool. So quite a few components, or quite a few dependencies here. But again, it's one of those things where like once you set it up and get all this work done up front, and then make the writing of the stories part of your process, it's actually well worth your time. Okay. And I haven't even really shown you the power of kind of this whole process, but I will get there very soon. There's a little bit of setup. Okay, so now we've got this story command, and it's going to run the start command for stencil, and then it's going to run our storybook command, which runs storybook. So let's go ahead and now what we're going to do is we're going to go into our stencil config, and we're going to edit this guy a little bit so that the browser doesn't open up, because we don't need that browser to open anymore. And actually, it might not. So let's just try to run the command and see what happens. So npm run story now, because I've made this new story command, and this should run both our start command, in which you can see there's our start running from stencil. It's running the build. Then you can see it automatically running the storybook command as well. And then you can see it kind of finished up the build, and then it's doing the Webpack stuff. And now it is opened up. It didn't, because we didn't do the -- serve command with stencil. It's not serving in the browser. It's not running the dev server. And now we're getting it to kind of just build and watch for changes without it opening in the browser. And now Storybook is opening itself in the browser. And now we should be able to change this and see our hot module reloading. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's jump into our test component, and we will just gotta catch them all. Booyah. So there we go. So now we've got hot module reloading completely working. We've got a command that runs stencil and runs Storybook, and then gets it all running in one tab in the browser so we can start testing and playing around. So Storybook. Cool, so now we've got a new command. I could even wire that up to start if I wanted to. so that I could just run npm start and it would start Storybook. It just depends on your needs. If you're building your components in the same project that you're building your application in, this will work. Yeah, if you're building, this will work. But if you wanted to just use this as your like number one thing that you use to dev, then feel free to wire that up to your start command in your package.json. So, all right, cool. So now we've got Storybook working with hot module reloading. We're piping in those new JavaScript files. We've got a command set up that's watching this. Let's start building some more stories and let's add some functionality onto this guy. One of the cool things that I like about Storybook is not only did they build a great tool for displaying components and different states of the component to make it easy. They also have a lot of extra things like you can test zoom, how zoom will affect your component. You can see a pixel grid to see more pixel perfect measurements. There's a full screen ability. They've got keyboard shortcuts hooked up to this whole thing. You can open a new browser window. It's just great. It's got a full robust set of tools you can use to make your life easier. But we can also use add-ons. So they've got a list of add-ons. So if you jump into add-ons down here, they'll kind of show you. They've got decorators and all this stuff, and we basically link them up to add extra functionality. One of the great add-ons is Storybook Actions. And there's actually quite a few of them. Let's get a couple set up. One of the ones I really like is the Storybook Viewport, add-on Viewport. And I did just push up, so if anybody's following along and wants to pull down and check out the repo, feel free, because I just pushed up the hot module reloading features. So again, feel free to pull that down and follow along. Okay, so let's go ahead now and got our hot module reloading. We're going to get this viewport package working, and we can jump in here. And something to note, again, this works with every framework. So if you're not using Stencil exclusively, if you're using like Angular or you're using React or you're using Vue, Storybook has like a really great tutorials on their website. Again, a link will be in the description. Head on over to their website and wire it up that way. You can also include your Stencil components into an Angular project and then set up Storybook with Angular. That's another way to go about it. We don't use any framework here at Manus Labs, proudly, and this is kind of what we did to set it up, and hopefully this is of interest to someone out there. So cool. So I'm gonna do a little bit more advertising here for a second. In a second, I'm gonna invite some more peeps. Do. Okay, so we're gonna get this add-on installed now. So we've got Storybook set up, we've got hot module reloading, and now we're ready to actually start utilizing some of this stuff. A thing to note is that I was talking about frameworks a second ago, about Storybook supporting all that stuff and how to wire those things up. Note that the add-ons themselves can be kind of platform specific. So for instance, here in Polymer, you can see there are certain things that aren't supported. A lot of the things are supported everywhere. And luckily, HTML is like the most compliant of all other than React. So we're in good luck. Just check that out if you're using this on one of the framework projects. But either way, it's a really great great thing that we can install these add-ons and kind of keep adding functionality. So first off, I'm going to kill my build here. I'm going to install, run the install command here from their GitHub repo, and it's going to install the Storybook add-on Viewport. And most of these add-ons work the exact same way. We're going to create a file in our Storybook config directory called addons with an s.js. And then what we're going to do is we're going to then in here import our library for the plugin. So you can see here is the Storybook add-on Viewport, and then there's this register command that's going to get it set up for Storybook. And that's all we have to do in this case for this plugin. Some plugins or add-ons you have to do per story, but this one is really simple, luckily, and it's just kind of universal. And what this Viewport plugin or add-on does is when we do npm run story now, and I'm going to go ahead and commit that up and just kind of keep moving along here as I do things. I'll commit up. So if you want to pull down and follow along, yeah. So now we've got this new Viewport thing. So now we can actually click on this button. So you can see it added a button up here to our bar. We can click on that, and now we can toggle between different viewports. Like here is what it would look like on a Pixel or a iPhone 5, or if I wanted to rotate the viewport. So this is a really handy little add-on, but there's more we can do too. So let's go ahead and set up another add-on, and this one's going to be a little bit more complex. This one's going to be for doing actions, but first, before we install another plugin and get any deeper here, let's go ahead and set up another story for our star rating component, so we can see a little bit more robust component and how that works. So again, I'm going to just create a new file underneath the directory because that's how we have it set up. Star rating stories .js, and then I'm going to just kind of paste what we have in our other one. So I'm importing stories from the Storybook HTML library, and then this is going to be our star rating, and we're going to say default, and then engine dash star rating, engine dash star rating. Okay, cool. And then you see I added that story, and there it is. It's loaded and it's ready to go. And now we can see our component, and we can start to interact with this guy and rate. So now what if we want to see what is happening when we interact with our component? Well, luckily there is an add-on for this. So we can go back to our list of add-ons here, Storybook add-ons. So we can go to a list of, they've got an add-on gallery here. They've got something called actions. And actions basically let us see when something is, when an action occurs inside of one of our components. So we can listen for that. And so let's go ahead and install this guy. So we're going to do npm install again. So let's kill our build. npm install this dev dependency, Storybook add-on actions. And then same thing, we're going to go inside of our add-ons, and then on this list here, we're just going to import the actions register. And now we are ready to use this guy, but this one is something that we wire up per story. So we go into our story here, and we want to basically import this guy, set it up. So let's go ahead and go into, let's go ahead and go into, sorry, I'm cheating off of another thing. So let's go ahead and import with actions from the Storybook add-on actions library. And then what we're going to do is we're going to pass that into, we're going to pass that as a decorator. We're going to add a decorator to our stories. Instead of doing story, our right here, right under add, or before our add, we want to add a decorator. And so this decorator is going to be with actions. So that's what we imported. And then we're going to say what we're listening for. So if we go into our star rating component, you can see that we emit this FT star rating event. So I can basically set, FT star rating. Yeah, okay. Well, okay. So we have this FT star rating. I'm going to change that to engine star rating. Don't know how that stayed. Too much copy pasta. Okay, so you can see this engine star rating. Yeah, see, it's different. Engine star rating event. I can basically then just pass this in as a string here. Let's move this guy back over. So I can pass this in this with actions, and we pass in a list of strings as the parameters. And engine star rating now is going to be listened for from the components here. And then we're going to have a new panel that we can use to actually see these actions in action. So I'm going to give another shout out. Good evening. Okay, cool. So now we've run our storybook again, and we can see our star rating component. And now you can see here we have a new panel called actions. And so now when we interact and we get our star rating, now you can see the action that's being taken. One of the things that I haven't been able to get working on here is for some reason it doesn't show you the event. So this specific event is supposed to give us the details with the name and the value. But for some reason, and I don't know if this is just by design or if it's just because of the way we have it set up, you can see it says is trusted as false. I'm guessing we don't have the authority to grab the event data. We can see that an event fired, but we don't have the ability to grab the data for some god-awful reason. I'm guessing because it's coming out of an iframe up here, and so it just doesn't have access to it. But I don't know. If anybody, again, that's why we're kind of doing this live stream and just showing you kind of what we've done and the work we've done thus far. Hopefully we can get you guys to give some feedback, contribute to the repo that we've got online here. And yeah, so there you go though. We've got, now we can see the events. So now that's how we kind of wire up actions to view the actions that are kind of happening in our components. Now let's take it a step further. Let's do something really, really cool. We also, many people don't know this, but Stencil actually builds out documentation for you on all of your components auto-magically. And they do this in a very clever way because we use TypeScript. TypeScript is a statically typed language, so it has a lot of information that it can give us. So what we can do is let's first off put some comments in here. So here, let's go ahead and just put some comments on what our props are here. So this prop is whether or not the field is disabled, the name of the input, the max available star rating, the current value of the rating input. Cool, so there you can see, and I'll even add one here. Oh, yeah, the value, current rating. Okay, so, and then you can see we've got like a method here, so let's go ahead and log that guy. Cool, so now we just added a couple notes here, and now what we can do is we can basically get Stencil to run a build for our docs. So to do that, we need to make another edit to our Stencil config. So to do that, let's go ahead and jump over to our Stencil config. Actually, we can do this another way, a little bit simpler. Let's go ahead and jump over to, well, I'm going to commit setup actions. Okay, so now we've got all this stuff running. Now we're gonna build docs, and this will become clear why we're doing this here momentarily. So let's go ahead and jump into our package file actually. And in our package file, we just, on our start command, let's just add the command -- docs. And by adding this flag, you could also set it up in the stencil config, but by adding this flag, actually I will do it in the stencil config, just because I want it to run no matter what. So in our stencil config, another way we can do it is we can just set up a new one, call it type of docs. You can see there's the different options that you have. So type of docs, and now when it runs the build, it's going to build out the docs for our project as well. So now I'm going to kill my build, and then I'm going to restart it. And this time when we start it up, it'll pick up on those new configs, and then we should see a MD, a markdown file, get created under every one of our components. Okay, we do not. So we might still have to pass that docs flag. So I'm going to go ahead and do that too, just in case, -- docs. So let's try this again, because the result we're going for is that by adding this -- docs, you can basically get it to build a markdown file. There they are, or markdown README under every one of your components. So if you've written comments inside of your code on your props like a good little developer, then you should be able to automatically generate a markdown file that looks something like this. So here is our markdown. I'm going to close these guys just so we can see the full thing. So here's our markdown file, and you can see it's got, there is the engine star rating, and it didn't grab our comments, and actually I know exactly why it didn't grab our comments. I used the wrong type of comment, engine, star rating. So I'm going to change these guys out really quickly using my Control D. Then we're going to go end, enter, slash, enter. Okay, there we go. So now I've changed these out for the standard doc block comments, which is what it was looking for. And now if I save, it should automatically build, and it probably won't refresh here in VS Code. So I'll probably have to go back in here, check this guy out again. Yep, there you go. So now we can see, now it knows our method, set current rating, and here's all the comments that we put. It puts it in the nice little table. But what would be even neater is that I'm viewing my component over here. And if I'm building this out as like a documentation website, and we use it for something like that, then I probably would want this to be something where I could view my docs inside of Storybook. And you're in luck, we can set that up too with an add-on. So let's do it. Why not? So again, we're going to do the same process again. We're going to go back to the list of add-ons here. We're going to go down until we find Notes. And Notes is a pretty simple one. It adds a little tab for doing notes. And let me make sure I've got the right one. Notes. Yes, it is Notes. Cool. So to do this same thing, we're going to install an npm package. And note, sometimes you'll find that they're using Yarn, yuck, but whatever, to each their own. They're using Yarn, and so you can now, you can just replace Yarn with npm install, and it works just the same at storybook/addon-notes. So this notes one just makes us a little tab that we'll be able to see right next to our actions. And though that tab, we will basically port or populate it with the README. So first thing, again, we've installed our plugin, our add-on. Now we need to go into our add-on file and include that guy. So let's include the add-on here for the notes. Save that. And then this one is another one where we have to do this on a per component basis. And so if you're if you really wanted to kind of adopt this more fully, I would really recommend that you set up some kind of a command with something like plop.js or something like that that would copy a template and paste it in there. It'll probably also be coming to our engine CLI tool, which I'll also try to put a link in the description if I remember. So yeah, there's I would definitely recommend automating as much of this as possible, because I know we will. Cool. So in our in our component now, we need, oh goodness gracious, we need to set it up so that we're feeding the README file into the actual notes pane. And luckily that's really easy to do. We just need to import our README. So we will, up here at the top in our star rating story, we're going to import README from /README. And then we're going to feed that into our stories. And we can pass in here at the end, we can pass in an object, and this object holds like config and different stuff that we can pass in. And most add-ons like have some stuff you can set up and configure on each story. So what we're going to do is we're going to pass in our notes. So there you go, notes. And then we're going to have markdown because we're telling it specifically we want this to render as markdown. And then we're going to pass in our README. And the README is just going to be whatever it reads from our README over here. So again, Stencil now as part of our build is building out markdown files. Then we're going to, in our story, we're going to import that markdown file and then put it into this notes tab. So let's go ahead and copy the same thing for our test component so that we are across the board here. And same thing here. We want to grab the, there we go. We want to grab this guy and we want to paste this at the end. There we go. So now both of them should be importing their README and putting it in the notes tab. So let's run our storybook again and we should be able to see our notes tab. All right, so now you can see here's our star rating component and we get the actions that log out there at the bottom. And then we can click on notes now. And now you can see here is the markdown file directly in our browser. So now we've got the markdown that Stencil automatically built for us. We've got that markdown piped into this notes tab that we can see alongside each one of our components. Holy snap, look at that, guys. All right, it is a break time, so let me commit this. Set up README in Notes tab. So Emmy is back with us here. I think that's my webcam. Yes, that is. So Emmy's here and she made cookies. Woo! So if you're not watching, you're missing out because you know. Oh, just wonderful. And there's even cookies with poop on them. Oh, chocolate frosting. Chocolate frosting. Oh, chocolate frosting. Okay.
You know, if you're having a chocolate attack.
Yeah. Are this is regular?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
This one's a regular one too,
Vanilla.
just with chocolate icing on it.
It's like, you know, the way to my heart. She comes up here, like we're recording, and like she's down there making cookies and being a jolly little elf.
They're supposed to be pretty gooey.
Okay. Well, I'm going to wrap up here. And I'll join you downstairs.
Okay. You want me to leave this up here with you?
No. I'll come down. Okay. So, thanks, baby.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't she the best? She's the best. Okay. So, let's kind of cap this guy off because I think we're getting pretty good here. Let's write some more complex examples of components, because one of the big things on making these is the ability for you to save multiple states and to preview them individually. So what we'll do is under our star rating stories, under our star rating stories, we are going to set up a couple more states here. So we're going to add another guy, and this one's going to be with rating. So this is our star rating with rating, and we are going to be doing this a little different this time. So instead of returning a string, we're going to return an HTML element, and it's really easy to do. So we're going to just let's just open a set of curlies here, and then we're going to do document dot create element. Standard JavaScript API. So it should be easy peasy. And let's go ahead and do engine-star-rating. And let's save this guy to a variable. Const star rating L equals just a thing I like to do. I'm really obsessive about this. I like to put L on the end of every element, just so that way when I'm looking through, I know exactly which ones are HTML elements. Don't have to, but you might. So cool. So let's go ahead and set some attributes on this. So we know our star rating. We know our star rating component has a couple props. So we've got disabled, we've got name. In this one, we said we wanted to set the value of this guy. This has a rating. So let's set this with a value of 3 stars. So let's just do star rating L dot value equals 3. And then we're going to do return star rating element. And what that's going to do is, again, you can either return the string of the element, or you can return back an HTML element and it'll put it on the page. And in this case, remember our props, and this is actually something that dawned on me way too late. But our props, at first I had been trying to set things via attributes and stuff like that. It just was eluding me that these props are properties on a object. So in this case, our element is an object, and so we can just do star rating dot L dot value of 3, and then when we return that, it will carry that prop with it. Note that when we create things in here, we don't have access to like the methods and things like that. There is a way around. So if you wanted to run a method, there is a way that we found, like in your component did load, you can emit a like loaded event and then catch that inside of here. So you can do star rating L dot add event listener. So you can add an event listener for like a loaded event or something like that, and then you can have it run the star rating L dot set current rating. So you can do something like that. This is how we've handled it when we had to run a method or something like that. But realize that like when Storybook is creating this element, it's not technically an element inside of the DOM yet. So your library, the stencil component, hasn't loaded and done its thing. So it will carry props with it, but it won't know about the events or methods and stuff like that. Anything that you've done in your component, it won't know about any of those things because it hasn't loaded inside of the DOM yet. So just something to be aware of. But again, easy way around it. In your component did load, emit a loaded event, this dot loaded dot emit or whatever, emit a custom event for like loaded, and then you can listen for it in here. We're going to just do it this way. So now we should, if we save, we should have with rating. And now if I click with rating, look, it's already got 3 stars out of 5. So now this is the beauty. We're wiring up our component with multiple different states so that we can test each one individually without having to like see them inside of the app, click through everything. And also, as the designer on your team will probably tell you, they don't want to click through the whole website and find your bugs and stuff like that. This gives them a thing that they can use to put right next to their list of symbols and basically check off and make sure that everything looks good. So let's wire up one more just for fun. We're going to wire up another state where we're going to have the disabled. Same thing, disabled equals false, dot disabled equals, disabled equals true. And we're going to see we get the same result, disabled, and now you can see I can't click it, and I'm not getting the event either. So yeah, so that's the gist of kind of what we've gotten started with StencilJS. We actually got a little further in this, but as we're going on like an hour or so, I think it's probably time we wrap this guy up. But we're going to commit all of this. So add more states to. So one of the big things that we got hooked up here, I'll commit this guy up. One of the big things that we got working with Storybook that we're super proud of is not only do we get this working with the hot module reloading and everything like that, we also managed to get testing working. So in one of our other repos, there's a tab, and actually I'll just go ahead and pop that guy open real quick, and I'll show you. And then we'll wrap up here. So just to show you what our Storybook looks like for our other project here, where we've got this thing fully set up. Give a second. This one takes a little bit. It's a little bit more of a fatter project. All right, so here's our Storybook for another project that we're working on, and here is an example of kind of what we set up. So we have like this air component down here. Another couple add-ons that they've got on the website that you should totally check out and try to hook up yourself is we've got these knobs. So knobs allow you to set up different fields that will interact or edit different things inside of your actual component. So for instance here, this component, if we look at the notes, we can see it has a message, and that's the error message that it's going to display. And you can see it says this is an example of an error, and there's our text there. And so I can actually change this, and after I'm done typing, it will go about updating the component, which is super cool. And then the other thing that we're really proud of and really impressed with is they've also got tests. So you can basically, since Stencil is built using Jest testing, you can write tests around your unit tests around your component, and then you can write those tests and then have Jest export a lump of JSON, and then you can read that JSON with Storybook, and it will give you this nice little test panel where it'll tell you should render, should have no error messages, or should have no error message. It'll show you all the tests, how long it took to run, and then if they all pass. So this is a really cool thing. And if you guys are interested in seeing more of this stuff, feel free to hit us up at Madness Labs. Actually, have you guys been looking at me for a little bit? And I don't know if you guys saw this or not. I might have had it just on our webcam, but this is what I was talking about. So we've got the knobs panel where we can actually change text input, and you can see there it's changing our error message because our error message component here only has one property, an error message that displays. And then we've got this test panel again, and there you can see it's got the 2 passing tests that we've written for this specific component. And again, all these things live under the components directory where you wire all this stuff up. So it's kind of something that just naturally works really well with the development process. So, but there you go, guys. That was our foray into Storybook with Stencil. I know that there was a lot of people that were talking about this online and trying to get this all working. One thing that David had recommended was that we could use an import. We could import out of the distribution. We could import the loader. However, when we did that, we ran into some kind of an error, and we tried to kind of get a little help on the Stencil channel as well as reaching out on Twitter. couldn't quite get it fleshed out. So if you guys know the magic fix for that, you would be the hero, and I would be glad to update this repo. And again, feel free to submit pull requests or issues, and just play around with this. This is all just us kind of playing around and kicking it to you guys in the community and seeing if it's useful for you guys. And if you guys like it, and you like us, give this video a like, give our repo a star, give us that good old subscription. So so there you goes, guys. Try catch 'em all, and we'll catch you next Saturday for the next video. Maybe you guys should hit us up at Madness Labs on Twitter and tell us what you'd like to see us cover. Bye.